This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Emily Dean and Pierre Novelli. Now listen, there's no nice way of putting this. We're not live this morning. This is a pre-recorded show, so don't text in. You'll be throwing money down the drain. However, you can Twitter and Instagram. I'm saying Twitter because there's a T missing on my handout. You can
handout.
So you can Twitter and Instagram at Frank on the Radio and email frank at absoluteradio.co.uk. I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah.
But I just read what I'm handed.
Oh. Well, careful with that excuse.
They won't
you
cost
can end
you.
up in all sorts of
they
hot
won't cost
water.
you anything, but nor will they gain you anything. So that's a philosophy that you have to sort out for yourselves.
What an opener.
Yeah.
So, hey, first I'm going to start with a thank you. Russell Croucher.
Okay.
He sent me, I was talking about the fact that I'd got a traditional four-colour pen, and I got one, I managed to attain one which instead of the green ink slide had got a pencil option, which was, if you've got pencil, black pen, blue pen, red pen, that's my life.
Yeah.
Right there. And then I accidentally wrote in a book, in like a proper poetry book, in black ink because I got the wrong slide down. That was a little summary of that particular tragedy. He sent me rather beautifully a traditional four-colour ink pen with a pencil sellotape to it, and the pencil points in the opposite direction, so I can never make that mistake again.
It's good.
What a guy.
It's good, but it's making me feel a bit sick.
Why?
I don't know. I don't think the pen and the pencil, they're very different beasts. They're not happy bedfellows, particularly when they're trapped together with a dirty old sellotape.
I like the pen and the pencil. It sounds like a musical song. There was a musical song called The Hard-Boiled Egg and the Wasp. A narrative tale.
This is a difficult follow-up to The Owl and the Pussycat.
Yeah, I think the wasp falls in love with a hard-boiled egg by a series of misunderstandings.
We've all done
Gosh,
it.
I wouldn't like to reverse engineer those misunderstandings from
Who
the
would
title.
you rather be in that couple?
Oh, the wasp, I think.
Oh, I'd go egg.
Hated, I know, but mobile.
But free.
Yeah, exactly.
Hated but free.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for hated but free.
Frank, on the pen...
But Boris Johnson texted me only last night.
Frank, on the pen front,
On the pen front.
Brian Jones, just so you know, has been in touch.
Right.
You may be interested to know that Martin Keown, the ex-Arsenal footballer, uses a multicoloured pen.
Does he?
As spotted on the video feed from his appearance on TalkSport. Frank's a trendsetter, a possible new friend for him. Over to you, Frank.
No, well, I'm glad to. He's the thinking man's football pundit, Martin Keown. He's much better spoken than your average.
I thought you were going to say much better
football
speaking
pundit.
than playing.
No, he was very good at
Yes,
playing
he
as well.
was.
So yes, I'm happy to be in his Venn diagram.
Okay.
Certainly. On the subject of spotting things that we've talked about on the show, I noticed that the popular comedian Al Murray wears a pinky ring, which I think I identified as a warning, as a thing to avoid. Yes. I'm sure it doesn't apply to Al, but yeah.
No.
I'm guessing that's a family crest or something.
Well, he's lovely, Al. He's a poshun, as I believe that's the word I use.
I'm just thinking he's got a big finger, Al, and he might be running out of options. That might be a ring that's made its way along the hand over the years.
Shut up. It's a priceless family heirloom.
Is it really?
I
Do you know
wonder-
that for a fact?
I wonder if... What if in off stage he's got his actual one, and then on stage he's got the one that the landlord would wear.
Oh,
he does a switcheroo.
That'd be a salve. That'd be a salve on the central finger, wouldn't it?
What, Frank? What was the one
Yeah,
with
What's the central finger called again?
No.
There isn't actually a
The
central
rude finger.
Yeah, yes. But the landlord wouldn't do that gesture because
No.
it's too American.
Yes, that's true. A
Oh, he
patriot.
wouldn't like that. Frank, what's the onyx ring? Would he favour that?
Oh, I'll have to look up Onyx before I answer that.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
I'll tell you what, I had a... see what you think about this. Because
Okay.
I thought, can I talk about this on the radio after it happened? And I thought, yeah, it'll be fine. I'm very sensitive. So first of all, the first bit's all right. I got on the tube last night. The tube being the London Underground, for those outside of London. I never like to assume. And when I say I got on it, I got to the barrier where you have to show your ticket, and I got out my over 60s travel card.
Yeah.
Which was given to me on my 60th birthday by the establishment.
Yeah. The powers that be.
I don't know who officially hands it out, as you can tell.
This all sound very sort of Kafka.
Yes, so it says 60 plus London, and it's got a picture of me. I'm waving it about now. And I
Glamorous
got...
laugh.
Pardon?
I sung a bar of the glamorous laugh
Yeah.
by Fergie.
Fame.
So, no, everyone gets
David
this.
Bowie.
Everyone gets it. So I got to the barrier and it wouldn't work.
Oh.
My loyal over 60s travel card. And I looked at it, and for the first time ever, and I must have looked at it 1,000 times, I realised it has on it discount expiry date 12th of February 23.
Were they expecting your demise?
Well, I think in an over 60s travel card, I think I should define the expiry.
Yes. Does that explain that bullet that ricocheted off the wall near you on the
Yes.
12th of February?
Do they just think, what do you think, he's got a year?
It feels like
should
it should have.
cover him.
You know, the small print thing, things like it should say 12th of February 23 or death in brackets, whichever comes first.
or next offer?
Yeah, so I don't know if I can renew it. If I've lived too long,
You're back to paying.
I can hear now a council person on the phone say, "Sorry, mate, you've lived too long.
Not
You're
the
going to
only
have to
one.
go back to paying."
We can
You know.
send someone round to put a
but,
stop to this.
You know, the living too long thing, we're trying to stamp down on next people
Maybe
taking
it's a
advantage.
gentle hint. So I wonder if everyone gets this. So it's a yearly thing.
No, it's not a yearly thing. I've had it for 6 years, and
They were guessing.
12th of February. How random a date is that?
It would be spooky if we compared it with someone else's and theirs expired after 8 and someone else's 9 and 4.
No, do you know what
and
I've
they're guessing.
No, I've worked it out. So it's about 2
Lucy, can you go into the street and stop some pensioners?
It's 2 weeks after your birthday, or so around then. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe they think 1 year. It'll just all. They predicted you might be overwhelmed by the celebrations. So
Yeah.
2 weeks after it is a safe bet.
Okay. Well, I'm investigating. I say there are times on this show when I say you have to hear my personal assistant.
Yes.
Is investigating.
Yes.
Because I've really grown to love my over 60s travel card. During lockdown, it burnt a hole in my pocket. The idea that I wasn't using it
Yes.
frustrated me. Anyway, I then got on the train, having paid with my credit card.
Yeah.
After all I've done for this country.
You've got an award from the
Yeah,
monarch.
I'm hoping when I get the MBE, I'll be able to just swipe that in supermarkets and everything. Never have to
Yeah.
pay for anything again. It better have a barcode on the back.
Swinging it round your neck.
Yeah, that would be great. What a gift that would
lanyard.
be.
And a lanyard with
A
one of those
lanyard.
retractable...
But also, I'd like it to have a slightly sort of civil service aspect to it. So maybe just a nylon string.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'd like.
No, business-like, I'm happy with that.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
I was reading the other day about Oasis that during an Oasis gig, Liam Gallagher would do between 5 and 7 Rubik cubes behind his back while singing.
Really?
You know, he was stands with his hands behind his back. And he has a special, like, little platform stitched into the tailed parka.
Yes, like a little shelf.
Yeah. Brilliant. It's always, my view that you do things best when you're doing something else
Yes.
at the same time. I think that's a very good
He's a
example.
multitasker.
He can't sing in the rain or he drowns.
Yes. Well, that's...
It's got to be a covered stage.
I hadn't thought of that. So I got. I was telling you about the fact that I struggled to get through to the actual platform on the London Underground because I've officially died. So I did get on the tube. It was busy. It was like, it was tea time, as we'd say back in the Black Country. And
What's that, tea?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So there's people, and a man got on, and I have to describe this man, and I say this with all tenderness. Facially,
Oh, dear.
he looked like a homeless man, in that he got a very raggedy beard and a black eye, a really big black eye. But he was immaculately dressed in quite fashion, I'd say high fashion clothing.
Right.
And I thought, that's interesting. And he said to me, oh, no, and he's one of these, he had very, very quiet voice, which on the tube,
Useless.
I said, I can't really, he said, and I thought, this is going to be, people were starting to stare. And he reached into he had like a bag, like a designer shop bag. And he reached in and he took out a small parcel and he unwrapped it. It was a slice of cheese. And it had a thing on it which said something like some French word and mature. And it was a lovely, the way it had been wrapped, it was obviously bought.
I wouldn't say ladies after it.
So it was bought from a what?
I wouldn't say ladies
No, it
after
didn't say that. So it had, it looked like it was from a proper posh shop.
Yeah.
And he offered it to me.
Really?
So people by now were staring, and he said, as he himself pointed out, but I could tell by the gesture he was offering it, and so I broke a chunk off.
No.
Yeah. Only looked, it was still
Are
in
you
it.
absolutely joking?
No. Since I've been in Amsterdam, my cheese intake has gone through the ceiling.
Yeah.
You broke a chunk
But
off.
he was clearly offering, even though I couldn't hear him, his gesture was
know
one of
that he
giving.
was offering.
You accepted cheese from a ghost.
Yeah, exactly.
let's be frank.
It was a bit Banquo's ghost. Banquo's haute couture ghost.
Yes.
And I tell you what, I realised as I
playing at?
it was in like posh wrapping. So anyway, I had a chunk of it. It was lovely,
Sure.
and
I wouldn't accept it off a friend.
and then I thought, this guy has got lottery winner written all over him. Homeless man buys lottery ticket, goes to shop, buys like the fanciest, most modern clothes and like state of the art cheese. And but hasn't lost his roots of being indecipherable and having a black eye. Yeah, it was a really strange. And then
you say he looked homeless, but then he was offering you food.
But he was
offering you the cheese.
He was immaculately dressed, and he said another 5 minutes of things I couldn't hear. And in the end, he became exasperated at my non-response and stopped speaking to me. Happily, I'd reached Embankment, so that was my stop.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
I don't know if I'll ever stop thinking about this cheese encounter of yours.
Well, it was the clothes the man was wearing, like I said, as well as being very fashionable and smart, looking like they were just purchased.
Yeah.
I'm imagining some less nice clothes in a public toilet somewhere, and he'd gone in
Yes.
and just got changed.
Can I just say that looking at a card and seeing that you're being told that you're dead by a document and then meeting this man. It lends it all the aspect of sort of a limbo or a dream.
Well, it's very Christmas future. It's something of the...
I think other people could see him because they were, unless they were smiling the fact that I was talking to myself.
Talking to thin air and eating cheese that you'd bought yourself from your open palm.
I mean, yeah, he does. There is something of the Dickens character about Frank.
But people were giving me that look, and we must have all experienced this, that look of people look really happy around me. You know, when people are, I'm so glad this person isn't speaking to me.
Me, yes.
Of course, their attitudes changed when they saw the free cheese element.
Maybe that was the lesson.
Yeah.
It was the lesson for everyone else.
Exactly.
Judge not.
Yeah.
You too could have some of this smelly stuff from someone's old pocket.
But now, when you say fashionable, do you mean like the sort of fashionable like a Armani suit or fashionable like streetwear fashionable?
No, I mean fashionable like what one would see on a catwalk, like a slightly challenging fashionable, like a jacket with
Are you talking
added bits on it that you think, oh, that's a bit...
I think we're talking directional.
Well, I don't know what that means.
It means what you just said.
Okay.
Directional fashion. So it's just it's a big statement.
Okay.
Yes, the sort of thing you might see on the red carpet at the BAFTAs.
Someone's trying to make a bit of a splash on the photos.
Who's the lady who's called something Joy, who was in The Queen's Gambit?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Well, Anya Taylor-Joy, ooh. Anya Taylor-Joy on the BAFTAs red carpet wore, like, you know, a nice mini dress type thing. But for the picture, she had an enormous... I mean, it was Kravitz-style scarf, but made of some sort of... I'm going to call it shot silk. And the reason I'm going to call it that, because I don't know what shot silk is, but I like saying it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was that kind of... He could have just come off the red carpet.
Yeah.
Via the doorway.
While we're just briefly on the BAFTAs, don't worry, we're going to get back to the cheese. Richard E. Grant, or Reg as I call him,
yes,
he went for a white cape, Frank.
He did.
What say you?
No, he carried off. I mean, I don't approve of non-comedians hosting award shows.
No.
Media.
Nor do I recommend it generally.
But I thought he was a lovable host. But the cape was, I liked the cape. And I liked the lady who designed, the highlight of the BAFTAs for me was Sandy Powell getting the fellowship, because now this bloke on the tube could have had on his arm Sandy Powell and they would have not looked an ill-matched couple. She's like height of fashion.
Okay.
And it was... We'll never get to the bottom of it.
Did you swap numbers or anything? Did you think it was inappropriate?
No, I don't know if he'd got a phone yet. He'd only just found the money
and the cheese.
Yeah. So
thank God that Munger was next to the. I felt he was
in flux between between Dire Straits and The Good Life.
Yeah.
Not The Good Life, because that would be like self-preserve. But yeah, I thought he was just passed from rags to riches.
Yeah.
But he'd only just arrived at riches.
Only just binned the massive oversized cheque.
Yeah, I don't think he'd even been through passport control at riches.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
We're talking about this man who you ran into you didn't run into, that implies a prior knowledge, but you encountered him on public transport.
Can I make it clear again? I make it clear again that I don't... This man, God bless him, I'm pretty convinced that he was a homeless person who had recently come into an enormous amount of money in some way. That everything about him, as a detective, ex-detective myself, not true. That's what I think. But he was. I think he was being really friendly. I just couldn't hear what he was saying.
The cheesemonger's ghost.
Yeah.
Did he give anyone... what I would like... just a couple of questions. Frank very kindly said, when we had a brief comfort break just now, that he would answer questions if we had any on the cheese man.
Yes.
So I have one. Did the cheese man offer it to any other hunters?
Not while I was on the train, he didn't.
Okay.
He was very focused on me. He recognised me. So I would say he had a television about 20 years ago. That's another one of my deductions.
Do you think, like our Keith, he still called it the goggle box?
I hope so. I don't know what he called anything, so I couldn't hear him. But... yeah, if only in life one could take out a remote control and just turn people up or down a bit. That would be great.
You see, I generally find people are too loud.
Well, you know, there's like a stereotype we've spoken of, I think, quite recently, of the loud American.
Yes.
I walked up the road with my son a couple of weeks ago, and there was a bloke walking ahead, and I could hear, yeah, well, if you go down, I know, because I said, just talking to the person next to him, and I said to boss, what do you mean? He said, why is he shouting? I said, he's American.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the guy next to him was slightly cowering under the onslaught.
Yes.
Of it.
But is that...
It's like if I went...
Is it a geographical thing? Is it because there's more space?
The wide open prairies.
I mean, are South Africans loud?
They can be. I don't know.
It's a good idea, the space thing.
No, I think they have more space.
This would, if I was walking down the road alongside a curb crawling polling day, vote Labour.
Yeah.
That's what it would have been like if the bloke was talking to me through the roof speaker.
I had one of these just this week. Actually, I was in the sort of small Tesco near my flat, and an American lady who was sort of only a metre or so from me said extraordinarily loudly, "Do you know where the vitamins are in this store?"
Yeah.
And I went, "Gugh." And I said, all the sort of health stuff's just there next to the... And she went, and she was shocked at me because she'd been bellowing at her friend at the other end of the aisle.
She's probably sitting with friends now saying, so this bloke, he looked homeless, but he was so quiet I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell what he was talking about.
He was just gesturing wildly at vitamins.
Yeah, exactly. But you know the English, they're virtually silent.
This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Emily Dean and Pierre Novelli. We are not live, so do not text. Okay? You can Twitter and Instagram us, though. I'm not saying Twitter now because the producer has added a T with biro.
Biro.
Twitter and Instagram at Frank on the Radio. Email frank@absoluteradio.co.uk. I read that not only as if I'd never read it before, but as if I'd never read English before. It's like I read Chaucer in that slightly, this is strange, I love it.
He would have written it Twitter.
He would have, yeah. I don't know if he mentioned Twitter much. I've just received an email which I'm going to read to you hot off the press. It's from London Councils. I didn't even know there was such an organisation as London Councils. Some sort of joined.
Oh.
Sounds a bit scammy, but
Yeah.
continue.
Well, it says blah, blah, blah. Your application has now been passed to the administration team for processing, and provided your application is successful, you'll receive your Freedom Pass in 10 working days. Now, a Freedom Pass, I think, might be an upgrade from my over-60s travel card. I think it means I can travel the world free.
It's quite a dystopian sounding email. The council will grant you a freedom pass if your application is successful.
Papers, please.
I don't like why does one need a freedom pass? I consider it's a bit The Prisoner, isn't it?
I feel like I'm waiting for a pardon to come through. You know what I mean? They're building the scaffold. Any news from the governor's office?
I find it a bit Joseph K, the whole thing.
Well, I'll keep you posted on what freedom. I am actually going for free and hated.
Yes. Become
You're
the
going wasp.
You're going wasp.
Frank went wasp, not egg.
Maybe on
I'd always go egg every time, Frank.
On my art show that I worked on, when as I was explaining, I was told that everyone hated me on set. They might have a free and hated party. On my behalf.
Yes, with lots of sort of
I
jam.
don't believe that's true anyway.
For all the wasps.
Yeah.
Lots of sweet things in the open air.
Oh, sweet things in the open air.
Now, you've
What
been
a
talking...
party that was.
You've been talking about
Oh, I've been
cheese
talking.
for most of the morning, if we're honest.
Well, I was confronted with cheese. It wasn't my idea.
Oh, how do you think Tom and Jerry feel? Which
Yeah.
character is confronted by the cheese in that, actually?
Well,
I lied.
Jerry is the
Is
mouse.
Jerry the mouse?
Because it's Tom Cat. That's the thing to hold on to.
When you say hold on to it, I never intend to watch
No,
it
but-
again in my life because I'm an adult with
Well,
responsibilities.
it was one of those that, unless it's got produced by Fred Quimby, you want to be avoiding it because the modern stuff is very
no.
poor.
Oh, was it? Yeah, but which one is Pete in our favourite character? Is he in Tom and Jerry?
No, Pete is Disney.
Oh, okay, I've got it all wrong.
Pete, because he's an obscure Disney character.
Do you know Pete, by the way?
Which
Could
one
you
is
tell
Pete?
Pierre who
Well,
Pete
that's
is?
a very good question. We had a long debate. I had a text in on what kind of animal is Pete, and Pete is a sort of a periphery Disney character who plays generally unpleasant characters.
sort
He
of
was
the rent
Goofy's
collector.
neighbour.
Goofy sort of bully, yes.
Yeah.
The big,
Or
possibly
he'll
a
suddenly...
cat.
Well, I think we arrived at Cat as a final.
He's part dog, part sort of heavy.
He's just
Yeah.
big. He's like Bluto from Popeye.
Yes.
He's
Barrel
a bit
chested.
like Brian
Bluto,
Glover.
who
He
I
always
think-
plays slightly aggressive characters.
I believe
Yes.
Bluto's name was changed to Brutus, but they kept the same character.
Okay.
I don't know why
so
that was.
Peter's sort of constantly slapping Goofy's back and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, Goof."
Yeah, Pete is he's a bully.
Yeah.
Does he have I think he might wield a cigar even.
Yeah. Yes.
I even thought he was a bull or something like that, but he turned out to be a very well-developed cat.
It's a sort of civet or something.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what breed he is, but
Something
I don't
niche.
think he has a tail. Maybe he's a Manx.
I think Frank's texting was, "What is Pete?"
Yeah, but Pete has one advantage, and this is where Disney obscurity comes in. Hold on, I'll tell you
right.
Pete's advantage. That's the band I'm playing next. No, it isn't. I'll tell you what I think is Pete's advantage after this.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
We're talking about Pete from.
Yeah,
the
we've gone back to talking about Pete,
Well,
which I resolved I would never do. Pete, the Disney character, Google him if you don't know him. He's a periphery Disney character who is a sort of heavy. I think it was Pete who
Terrible name as well.
suggested to Goofy's son that there was no Santa.
Yes.
And I was proved humiliatingly wrong when Santa turns up at the end.
Quite right.
And I don't think he reprimands Pete 'cause he's a forgiving
Does
old
Pete
character.
speak? Because some of these.
Oh, God, Pete
Yeah.
speaks.
Oh, yeah.
Like all bullies.
How does he speak, Pete?
In an intimidating fashion.
He talks like
Yeah, it's got a goof. Yeah, what are you doing with it? Yeah.
A real man would have mown his lawn, Goof.
But what I'm
That kind of
saying is I think we've got Pierre's character for the absolute fancy dress party.
Pete.
Going as Pete, that'd be.
I'd love that.
But where Pete's advantage is because he's periphery and he's a bit of a specialist interest. Pete, even for Disney
He's
enthusiasts,
a deep Google.
Yeah.
he never endures what I refer to as bad Disney. And bad Disney is what you see painted on Fairground.
Yes. Yes. With
When-
sort of a spray can.
In an enormous flouting of all copyright rules, someone who shall be unnamed for legal reasons paints like a thick-set goofy.
Yeah.
And because we don't know who the hell did
Mickey
it.
Mouse with eyes completely the wrong size. Really sort of...
Yeah. Or Mickey Mouse, but with full-length trousers. And
Can
they're
I
blue.
also
Yeah,
say,
with 4 fingers and a thumb,
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse.
and doesn't appear to have seen any pictures of Madonna after 1984.
Well, I think...
Or George Michael.
MJ as well.
What
They're
they-
often.
this
They like
is a
pink now
person.
as well.
I once met a court artist outside a courtroom in London, and I went over and explained my great admiration for the genre You know, the pastel, or the white pastel crayon on the Met officer's shirt.
Yes.
And she showed me some of her work. We had a really lovely chat. And I said, so are you working on Soaks? It's a lovely day. And she said, no, we're not allowed to draw in court.
Oh, my God.
She said, people who are court artists invariably have virtually photographic memories. So you go and have a good old stare, eye up the details, and then you go into an ante room and do your drawings.
Oh, is that right then? I didn't know
I
that.
think the bad Disneys, they don't have photographic memory,
No.
but they are working on a similar. There are no Disney characters present
reference pictures.
when they draw. It's purely from memory, probably of watching them in their childhood.
I think they draw like they're having Disney described to them by an old sailor who saw them once.
Yeah.
I've as is my want, Frank, I've obviously Googled Pete and I'm reading about Pete.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I have a fantastic
You
piece
say
of trivia.
reading about Pete.
Oh, on the Disney fandom wiki.
Oh, what does it say?
Great piece of trivia about Pete. Having appeared 3 years prior to Mickey Mouse, Pete is the oldest recurring Disney character
Wow.
and the first villain.
But he's had a lot of the evolutions of Pete. Was my thesis, but the evolutions of Pete, I would go in deep there.
But the oldest and the first villain.
Yeah.
Again, a position I held on the art show.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
Still sounding good. That was Heart of Glass by, again, according to my notes, Blonide. Blonide. It's been a rough week.
What was I call her, Frank? Blondie.
Yeah, I quite like Blonide.
It sounds like a sort of fictional chemical from a sci-fi.
It sounds very Bond villain.
We're going to lower you into a vat of pure blow now.
But I think bromide, doesn't that lower your physical excitement levels? Isn't that bromide?
Yeah,
I think it was given
bromide.
to soldiers in the army to stop them getting
Yes,
too
do
frisky.
you know when I
Chill
first
out.
encountered bromide? I was at a Duran Duran concert
I like it so far, this story.
in about 1987, let's say.
Okay, embarrassing.
I know. Maybe 1988. And I felt for them because it was maybe 2 or 3, maybe it was 3 or 4 years, let's say, after their white hot peak. So they were playing Brighton instead of Wembley. It was that sort of
They
thing.
were like me, they're on simmer.
Yeah, they're on Simmer, exactly, Frank. And I think they
Frank
felt
Zimmer.
they weren't. That needs something. That deserves something.
That's the second volume of my memoirs. Frankie, I should have called the first one Frankie Boyle.
Royal. Diaries of a Wasp.
I'd never call me that again. My parish priest heard you call me that.
Anyway, I'm at the Duran Duran concert
I've looked up.
and I can see they're a little bit disappointed with the response because they're used to screaming girls.
Yeah.
We've all got on a bit. We're all a bit. I mean, I was still a teenager, may I say, at this point. And at one point, I remember Simon Le Bon suddenly said, "Is there bromide in the water in this part of the world or something?"
Oh.
Ooh.
And I didn't know what that is. And I don't think most of the other people did. So it went a bit silent.
No, it's not. Well, even the brain that is Pierre Novelli didn't know what bromide was.
And then he kept referring to bromide. He said, "Have you been at the bromide
no.
again?"
Oh, no. It's like when I saw the Colt and he started calling that man Mr. Shirt in the audience because he was wearing like a normal shirt rather than some sort of band T-shirt.
When rock stars never get angry with the
No,
fans.
never get angry on stage is my
No.
my
Have
general
you really?
rule.
Has that been your rule?
Yeah, it ruined Hitler.
Oh, for God's sake. We were having a lovely chat about bromide.
No.
And then you did...
Can I say, we're only talking about, if you're listening on one of the decade channels, 80s, I just played Blondie on the main channel, but due to a misprint, it says Blown-eyed, which is like bromide. But what I like about it also is that Blondie, you could say, was a tremendous aphrodisiac, well, certainly when I was a young man, and only change one little letter round, and it becomes equated with something which suppresses those appetites.
Yes.
And you can learn a lot from that, the importance of getting exactly the right letter.
Frank
right
Zimmer,
word.
Frank Skinner.
Yeah.
Now, Frank,
No.
I think...
I used to drink in an Irish pub, and when you walked in, the landlord would go, "No." Always. I liked it. It was a man who lived in the moment.
I think it's time we turn to some of our reader correspondence.
Oh,
How would
yes.
you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Well, I asked if people, because we're pre-recording this week, so don't text in or you'll waste your money. I pre-recorded. I didn't pre-record. I was just slightly put off by something then. But don't worry, this is what happens.
Yeah.
What was we talking about? We can cut this, can't we?
Yeah.
Or leave it in because people like the rubbish bits.
I think... OK. You can't say what you were distracted by.
No, I'll be honest with you.
I think you
The
should.
television is on mute in case a big story happens and we need to. It wouldn't really matter on a pre-record. But it just had a clip of John Motson walking on set on Fantasy Football being greeted by me, and it made me feel slightly emotional. So that put me off. I apologise for my unprofessionalism. Maybe we should go into a thing while I... yes.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
Frank, I want deeply to go over to our readers' contributions.
Yes.
So let's kick off with Dean Rawlings.
Okay.
You may recall, I think it was last week's show, you were telling us about your experiences in Holland. Mm-hmm. And I made it sound slightly sinister.
Holland or the Netherlands?
Oh, the Netherlands.
No, well, I was in Holland, actually.
Oh. Well, Pierre, why are there so... Pick a name. Pick a lane.
No, but
Netherlands.
Holland, I discovered this,
Is it different?
is part of the Netherlands,
Yes.
and it's the part that Amsterdam is in.
Yes. And it's like saying England instead of the UK.
Is it?
Yeah, something like
Okay.
that. So I was in Holland, but I was also in the
Got
Netherlands.
it. Okay. So you were talking about how you'd got into clogs.
Yes.
You'd become a fan.
I'd literally got in. I actually tried a pair. I was so close to getting a pair.
Well, Dean...
See, if I'd have had them on the tube, it would have made sense of being offered cheese, wouldn't it?
Yes. You would have been mumbling, "Oh, you look like you could use a bit of cheese."
Yeah, and someone else would have been holding up one of those. You know those things that blow cold air on you, those little windmill things?
You see, I miss the days my dentist used to wear white clogs.
Really?
And Rolf, who is Norwegian, and I always felt so comforted and reassured by them. Now they'd be wearing the Crocs.
There's a
Surgeons as
Salima Hill poem, and I can't remember it word for word, but she said, I try to look... I think it's adorable and sensible. And she said, like a pair of surgeon's Crocs before they are splattered with blood. Forgive me, Salima, for slightly misquoting you, but she won't be listening. She lives in Dorset, I think.
Well, why would that rule her out?
Have they got DAB?
Oh, for heaven's sake. Dean Rawlings. Mm-hmm. Dean has some holiday purchase stories. Whilst on holiday in France, we decided to bring back a variety of cured meats, which were hanging attractively in a butcher shop window.
Makes sense.
He's talking my language.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, our cases were mislaid. They got lost, along with the cured meat. Several weeks later, our luggage was found and returned home, along with the smell of death seeping from the cases.
Oh, no.
Needless to say, the cured meats went straight into the bin.
Imagine local dogs chasing the car that delivered that suitcase back down the street. Oh, that's horrible.
Well, they obviously weren't cured enough.
No, it's usually cured lasts for... They told us when I bought the 1,000-day-old goat cheese,
Yes.
I was told it would happily live outside of a fridge for a month.
At least, once you've done 1,000 days.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a bit like your freedom pass.
I had some this week, of course. I got stuck into the 1,000-day-old goat. And if my mother-in-law won't mind me calling her that.
Oh, my actual God.
No, it's a joke.
Sandy, if you're listening.
And it was so rich, that cheese.
Bit like some other old goats I know.
It tasted almost like chocolate.
Didn't it?
It was that thick and deep and dreamy.
You're going to start offering it to people on the tube?
Too late now, unless I offer it already processed by me.
Oh.
Frank Skinner. Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
Absolute Radio.
Frank Skinner. Or Frank Simmer. Or Frankie
Hans
Boyle.
Zimmer. Hans Zimmer, does he feel his career isn't as hot as it was?
No. We have been talking...
I'm also in my own unique limbo of being between an over-60s travel card and a freedom pass.
Yes. In this dystopia.
It's this no man's land I find myself. Can you still say no man's land? Is that acceptable?
Pierre?
Yeah.
That's enough for me.
I feel it should be a no person's land.
It would be if we had World War I again.
Yeah, well... No, that probably won't happen.
Okay. Have you gentlemen stopped talking about military battles? Perhaps we could lighten the atmosphere in here. So, impulse holiday purchases.
Oh, yes. I was talking about nearly buying clogs.
Yes.
Actually buying cheese.
One of the greatest stories you've ever told.
And of
when
course,
you nearly bought clogs.
And of course, it took on a whole thing of... I've got to an age of experience where I can stop myself from buying everything that seems a great idea on holiday, though I did get a Hard Rock Cafe Amsterdam T-shirt.
Well, Lennon 3696.
Lennon as in...
Well,
You may say I'm a dreamer.
yeah,
That Lennon, okay.
That's that Lennon, not
Okay.
the Russian character.
No, he was more of an in.
Lennon did purchase the clogs.
Oh, how did that go?
I'll tell you how it went. I still very much use my clogs.
Oh.
In fact, I'm wearing them right now. Gone through 4 pairs. I've started having to get them shipped over.
What?
So, Frank...
Yeah, I see, I made a mistake.
How do you go through clogs? They're made of wood.
I know.
What are you up
Some
to?
sort of Pinocchio. I mean, I'm imagining Lennon's...
I think he does a lot of those hot coals walks.
He works at a tiki bar.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Can you imagine Lennon? The thing about Lennon, I find, though, is that you always know when he's coming.
Well, yeah.
He can't do anything.
But what Lennon has done now, he's made me think, oh, I should have got them. I'll tell you what did occur to me, because they're still on my mind.
Yes.
I was lying in bed thinking about the clogs, and the thing that has consoled me is
Extraordinary.
they must, by definition, be uncomfortable.
Yes, surely.
Clogs.
Well,
and
Lennon-
they say wear a thick woolen sock.
That's
But,
attractive.
you know,
Also, Frank, what worries me about Lennon... Lennon, what I'd like to
Quotes
know
from the Tsar.
is
Yeah.
what worries. I tell you what
Or Paul
worries me about
McCartney.
Lennon is Yoko. No, what worries me about Lennon is Lennon. Do you have wooden floors? Do you have neighbours?
he doesn't need wooden. He's got his own wooden floor.
But I just think they're quite a selfish footwear potentially.
If you're wearing them in a flat, but we've no evidence that he does that.
But even in a house.
No,
Is
but-
that fair on the people you live with? I don't want that.
You'd slip on carpet, wouldn't you? Because they're sort of smooth wood.
You could do the thing they used to do in new shoes in the wardrobe department. Scrape a fork
Yes.
on the bottom to make them a
Nail
bit...
scissors.
Yeah.
But Frank,
What a
I
co-
don't even want to hear that in the street. I heard someone behind me the other day, and she had the kind of heels that were going clomp, clomp, clomp. I turned around, I looked at her, I went,
Well, that's extreme, if you don't mind me saying. But that's how I feel when some idiot goes past with a suitcase on wheels going... Oh. What occurred to me about clogs quickly is if I got one, it was uncomfortable, all I need is a chisel.
Oh, yes.
And a wood chisel in there, and I can take that uncomfortable bit out.
Customise.
You can't do that with a leather shoe.
No.
So maybe if you can get them online, I might not yet have escaped the temptation.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
I've been doing, I tell you what, just around the house. Remember last week we were talking about car horns with regional accents. So if someone blasts their horn at you in Northern Ireland, it goes, "Arr! Arr! Arr!" like that. And I've just been doing them round the house
Yes.
on my own.
oh.
So, like, if you're in Liverpool...
How's Kath at the moment?
She's,
Very
difficult.
tolerant.
What would South Africa beep, beep,
Hardly.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
beep,
South Africa, yeah.
honk? Something like that.
Yeah, what would that be? Beep.
Beep.
Anyway, this is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Emily D and Pia Novelli. We're not live, so don't text. Twitter and Instagram, you can get us on @FrankOnTheRadio or email us frank@absoluteradio.co.uk.
Can I just quickly add something on the subject of horns? Ben Harrington got in touch to say, I once hired a large red SUV in the US of A. We'll get back to US of A.
Can you get back to SUV? What is that?
Oh, it stands for... It's a
Something
people
vehicle.
carrier.
Okay.
Yeah. Pierre will know what it stands for. He'll come back to us on that while I continue. We called it Big Red.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know about Big... I quite like Big Red.
Big Red was it a dog that was called Big
I
Red
hope
in an
so.
old Disney film?
I hope so.
There's probably a bad painting of it on a fairground somewhere.
The
We call-
bloodhound. Wasn't it? Anyway.
We called it
I
Big
thought it was
Red.
a red setter.
No. We called it Big Red and drove it over Northern California. We loved it, Big Red, until I had to use the horn. It was very high and slightly camp.
Oh,
I'm afraid you never know what's going on under the hood.
no.
No.
That's from Ben Harrington.
I suppose you'd want a sort of ship's foghorn if you're driving some sort of massive...
Yeah, you don't want... you don't want that.
How did it go? That's how I think it went.
Yeah. R. That's when I'm in Bristol.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get... I'd quite like an Oliver Hardy one.
I don't know if they have two syllables. Oh, they used to have da 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 da.
Yeah, Novelli, what say you?
Well, I was going to say regarding these cured meats, as at least an original South African, I can't let this lie.
Well, when we started talking about cured meats, I felt animation because
I sat up straighter in my chair.
Novelli-
Colour returned to my cheeks.
Novelli likes meat.
Oh,
There's no getting around that. He
Is
likes
he a
meat.
real... Is he one of those meat men?
I'm afraid so.
I mean, he would have seen that as a tragic story, the loss of those cured meats. And as you said, they weren't cured enough.
I would have fallen to my knees in grief before immediately being furious with whoever claimed to have cured them.
It isn't odd, unless they were kept in some heated...
I've got to be honest, Pierre, I thought of you when I went to the Chelsea Flower Show and they took me into some strange yurt affair and they said, this is the Guy Ritchie meat. It's a specialist barbecue. It's a whole... they're devoted to meat. It's like a giant sort of shack for men to eat meat in.
At the
You can
Chelsea
hire
Flower
it.
Show?
Yes.
Is it just to keep them busy while...
But it's Guy Ritchie's business. His obsession with meat.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's
Really?
obsessed by it.
Oh,
It's like it's a space for... It's like a meat eating unit. You cook it, 12 men sit around eating the meat.
That's my nickname.
It's odd
meat-eating
because
unit.
Madonna appears to be made out of brie. So I'd have thought he'd have been more of a cheese man.
But she's got the beef jerky arms.
Would
she
you
looks
remember
chewy.
when we went to that famous motorway services on tour? What's it called?
Oh, it's the one in
T-Bay.
Cumbria. T-Bay.
T-Bay Services, which is I would recommend to anyone. And when they had homemade biltong, if you'd have seen Pierre's face, oh man,
It was like Willy Wonka.
So
it's
you love
like
a cured that meat then?
it's like one of my favourite stage directions, which is in the My Fair Lady script. And when Alfred Doolittle finds out that his daughter is living at a millionaire's house, it says, Doolittle exits like a man on his way to El Dorado. And that's what Pierre looked
was me.
like at T-Bay.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
Pierre, let's talk about the meat.
Don't forget this week's texting. What is a scullery? Carry on.
I grew up with sort
By
of...
the way, don't text in because
Oh,
we're
yes,
not
yeah.
live. It was a joke. That's actually a joke.
No, we are the
Well, it is
cured
for you.
meats.
I've got no idea.
We are the cured meats. Yeah.
Yes. I grew up facing a similar cured meat in luggage transportation issues because you are not allowed to bring uncooked sort of beef products into the UK or into the Isle of Man.
Right.
And technically, biltong
We should establish this is where you lived. Was it South Africa first, then?
in Isle of Man, yeah.
Okay.
And so we would attempt to bring Southern African delicacies, biltong, droevoors, but they're technically...
Whoa, back a bit.
I don't know what wurst is. Meat, isn't it?
Sausage.
Frank, can
Sausage.
you deal with this?
Treurwurst.
Droer is like dry.
Oh,
dry
treurwurst.
So-
Okay, so dry sausage.
but not like salami, like dry enough that you can snap it, really dry.
So what's
okay.
bratwurst then?
Whatever brat is sausage.
Oh, brat
Okay.
sausage.
Small, unpleasant child
Yes.
ground into...
Yes, Strubel Peter has minced some bad children.
So go on.
So technically,
Can I say I went to the Stravelpeter Museum in
did you?
Germany?
Did you?
Yeah.
for
Do you know
long
that was-
That was a
fingernails
quiet
and-
day in Germany.
I'm really jealous of you.
Yeah.
That was one of my favourite books as a child.
Really? Don't tell anyone that.
Why?
Because it's such a cruel, dark book.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have much option. It was that or Macbeth at my house.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Take your pick. Back to the meat.
So I remember having to sit bored out of my skull while my parents did their best to explain to various customs officers that no, it wasn't cooked, but yes, it wasn't raw.
Oh, God, that is difficult.
So it's been cooked. And they go, well, no. But there was an early lesson that you mustn't try and tell the technical truth to people in
So
authority.
what had been done to it?
It is cured and dried and sort of salted, and there's salt and vinegar and all sorts of preservatives.
But never cooked.
No, but this stuff is rock hard. I mean, it would keep for 100 years.
Did they get it through, generally?
They failed once or twice when they were stupid enough to tell the truth.
I don't like
And
the
they had
sound
their-
of failed. I
Well,
can
they-
imagine them on those
I like-
customs
it's a
programmes.
great thing to be getting through. I mean, it's a very dry, hard sausage is something that you think if you got desperate, you could get through customs in
Oh, dear.
in the traditional smuggling ways.
You'd think. But they have
You
ways
would.
of finding... But yeah,
Anyway.
you must never tell the
Did I ever
the
tell you,
truth.
by the way, one of the saddest stories you'll ever hear?
You must never tell the truth.
Not when it comes to dried meats and customs.
When I first came down to London from the West Midlands doing gigs, I went to Camden and I was walking through Camden Town in North London, and a man came up to me and said, "Do you want to buy some stuff?" He said, and I said, instead of saying no, I said, well, thing is, I got so many crazy things already going round in my... And he'd walked away. It was a terrible yokel way of refusing drugs.
Oh, did you pretend to be a
Yeah,
sort of
you know,
rock and
I'm
roll?
so wild. In any way, I don't... But he'd gone. He wasn't interested. I'm just so embarrassing. Oh, I'm actually... You can't see it on radio. I'm actually doing the loser sign on my forehead. You know what? Feels good.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
It was Ash Wednesday, on Wednesday. So I went
Did you have to do the cross on your head?
Yes. So,
Did you?
yeah, what they do is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Catholic circles, they take the palms that are left over from Palm Sunday, which was like last year, and they burn those, and then the ashes are put on your head. And they aim at a cross, but often it just comes out as a bit of a blob in the middle of the head. And interestingly, this on the subject of religious festival mashups, being Palm Sunday and Ash Wednesday, when I had my pancakes on Tuesday, we didn't get the Nutella we intended to get, and so Boz had an Easter egg left over, so we broke that up onto the pancake.
Loaves of
There
fishes.
again, Easter and Shrove Tuesday.
Oh, of course, sort of recycling.
Festival mashup.
Very green.
Yeah.
Frank, what's Shrove then? Is that a religious thing or?
Well, it's traditionally, I suppose it's a day in which you are shriven.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that.
No, but what it's become is that's the day you go crazy and have all the cakes,
Is
chocolate
that
sweet. Yeah, it depends on what you're going to give up. You go for it that day because you're going to give it up the next day for 6 weeks.
Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday.
So what will you give up?
Nothing I can talk about on breakfast radio.
Oh, for God's
So,
clogs.
anyway, I went in, and by the way, every time I have pancakes, I'm going to put pancakes in on the list, which includes turkey and kite flying.
Yes.
As things that I do and think, you know what, I'm going to do this all the time, and then I don't do it for another year or so. And pancakes, I always think, God, I love pancakes. I'm going to have them all, but no.
What saint's feast are you flying kites for?
No, that's just the thing I do occasionally. Yes.
The feast of St. Phileas Fogg.
Yeah. Was it the flew? Who was the American president who flew kites? Was it Benjamin Franklin?
Yes.
I only know
he
them
tied
through
a
their
key to
dogs.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went to church. I got my ashes, and
Oh, Freedom Pass.
I then walk home. So I have to walk home with the ashes on my
Hang on, whoa,
forehead.
What do you mean? So they who does the ash? Is
The
it
priest
Is it the
does it.
vicar
Yeah.
priest? And you walk up. He
puts it on your forehead, so everyone's got this big black mark on the head. I met a woman who worked in Irish television, and she worked on the Irish Parliament coverage, and said on Ash Wednesday, the Catholic politicians would say, "Can you touch my ashes up a bit so they're more visible?" But in fact, as religious as you may be, you do think, I've now got to walk home with this
On my head.
Yeah.
Oh, this makes sense. I saw a prominent member of the Kennedy family. They're your lot, aren't
Yes.
they? And he had the crop. That's why. Okay.
Well, of course, I've got quite a big forehead. I don't think there's any question about that. So there's just this tiny black figure in the middle of an absolute array of whiteness. Looks a bit like those pictures of the lovely Alison Hammond with the BAFTA winners.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
So people were staring on the walk back with this big black, was I say basically a blob, really, a black dot in the middle of my... I thought maybe they were having flashbacks to old blind Pew in Treasure Island, who confronted Billy Bones with the black spot, and it means you're marked down to be killed.
I
They
suspect
may have.
they weren't.
Okay. Billy Bones, I don't know if you remember have you read Treasure Island?
Sometimes.
He was the one who sang habitually, he sang 15 men on a dead man's chest. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum.
I love Have You Read Treasure
It was
Island?
Rag
Something
Week.
Uncle
It
Monty
was Rag
got.
Week, I think, at Pirates University. 15 men on a dead man's chest. Does Rag Week still exist, by the way?
Yes, yeah. To my
Do they
knowledge.
still all get into a phone box and...
There are still There's still an element of wackiness.
Is it always is it doctors normally?
You never hear
Yeah.
about it now. You used to see people
Yes.
pushing a bed down a street or all getting into a Mini or something.
I think
Yes.
it varies by establishment, but it's got a strong medical student vibe to it.
I thought it was. It got out of hand one year, and I think a celebrity was kidnapped, and that was seen as overstepping the mark, I think.
I think generally these things are, if they're not discouraged, they're made unofficial, so no one's liable at the university.
Yes. Well, anyway, one bloke who stared at me got very excited and started nudging his wife and all that sort of thing. And I realised that if you see a celebrity, that's a point scorer. If you see a soiled celebrity, that's a real bonus, isn't it?
What sort of you don't just see them, but you see them with sort of mustard on their shirt or something that you think is a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. It's that joy of thinking not everything in this person's life is great.
Yes, seeing Clarkson drop a takeaway coffee.
Exactly.
Well, you should have added the clogs, then they'd have known not everything was great.
Well, they'd have also heard me coming, of course.
Did you? So how long does the ash last on the? Does it?
Well, I think you've got to at least walk home. But obviously, next shower, it tends to come off. You don't have to keep it on forever. But, if I was wearing a bindi, people would think it was quite cool and stuff. But they do stare at you like he doesn't know he's got the... When I got in, my partner said, "You got a big black blob on your head." I said, "How long have we been together?"
How long have you been together?
Every Ash Wednesday you say that. Oh, man. And then here's the thing. I got interviewed by You magazine. That was a
Producer
gasp
got-
from the producer.
Yeah.
Well, acting like it's Frost Nixon.
Yeah.
And
Well, this is for the. Is this for the poetry podcast?
this is pushing
you're
the
promoting?
poetry podcast. And the lady kept me about 20 minutes over time, and I was meeting a friend in a local restaurant, the Open Coffin. And I should explain probably that it's actually called the Oak and Poppy. But when someone said to me, "There's a new restaurant opening on the high street, it's called the Open Coffin," that's what I thought they said, and I've stopped with it.
Where did you meet the lady?
So I met her in Starbucks, the journalist.
Oh, so you take her to just the chain, and then you meet the friends in the
Meet the friends in the posh
Okay.
ones. So I was 20 minutes. I knew I was going to be 20 minutes late for meeting the friend. So my publicist, who was with me, I said, "You're going to have to come with me to the restaurant, so you can be a reliable witness as to why I'm late."
Living proof.
We've
Yeah.
all been there.
Yeah, so I marched the 20-minute walk to the restaurant to vouch for me. It gets stranger.
Frank Skinner.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
I arrived at the Open Coffin with my publicist and said, "Can you tell my friend now?" They knew each other happily. So she explained. And then Lucy, my publicist, turned to the woman on the next table and said, "Oh, hello, how are you?" So she knew her. And then the woman on the next table said, "All right, Frank, how are you?" I looked across, it was Patsy Palmer
Oh, shut up.
of EastEnders fame and was recently on Dancing on Ice. So this friend of Lucy's said, "Can I have a photo with you two?" And I said, "It's okay by me." So we got in and did the photo. And then a pregnant woman came over and said, "Can I have a photo with you two?" So we did that. By now, people were looking as if it was some kind of freak show.
Well, it does have something of the medieval carnival about it.
Yeah, and then so I was talking then to Patsy Palmer, and then Chloe Madeley came in
Where were you?
with James Haskell. I don't know if you know him.
The rugby.
Yeah, it's a rugby. I'm not a rugby person, but
He was on I'm a Celebrity. No.
I would have guessed he was
Something
rugby when he came in because he looked like he could have come in without using the door.
She's charming. I met her many years ago, as is the son.
Well, then
Lovely
my
Jack.
friend said to Chloe Madeley, "Oh, I produced you on Big Brother." And I thought, this is the weirdest.
This is what people think London is like.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember that. When I left home and moved into a bedsit in Birmingham, there was a guy living in the next bedsit, and we were going to go to some do. And there was going to be tango there. So we put some tango music on and saw if we could work it out. Tangoed together in his bedsit. And I remember saying to him, you know, this is why my mum and dad were worried about me moving out.
To that London.
Oh, man. We had a lovely text, didn't we, from...
We did. This is regarding... We were talking about your poetry podcast. Did the interview go well, by the way?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to tell.
Okay. I will tell when it comes out. Alex Jackson has been in touch.
Not the former West Bromwich Albion centre forward.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because it's spelled I-L-I-X.
Okay, it's not him.
I am Joan Hunter-Dunn's granddaughter.
That is fantastic.
I found your John Betjeman episode such a delight to listen to, and I would like to thank you.
Well,
Frank, would you care to explain?
I
This
should
is
explain
lovely.
that John Betjeman, the poet, wrote a poem called The Subaltern's Love Song, which begins, Miss J. Hunter Dunn, Miss J. Hunter Dunn, furnished and burnished by Aldershot son. And it's about Alex's grandmother, did she say?
Yeah.
And if you look at pictures of Joan Hunter Dunn when she was a young woman, you can imagine a man falling completely head over heels for her. So, oh, great.
Wow.
That's lovely. And that you can listen to that podcast on the Frank Skinner Poetry Podcast, which is available from wherever you get your podcasts. What about that for a link?
That's so moving, Frank, and that's the kind of correspondence you get. And from my podcast, I get sort of Alsatian pictures.
But that's... I always
there we
remember
are.
I saw Emily live and she did a
Yes.
brilliant thing that any stand-up comic would have been proud of. She got people from the audience on stage to do their dog voice. Hello. So the people were all getting up, like mine to be a little puppy. It's And people got up completely on normally if you ask people to do that, they would be too embarrassed.
Yeah.
But they just went into their dog voice.
Leaping up.
It obviously fills such a warm place in their emotional landscape. They were happy to go straight into it. It was brilliant.
Gosh.
Anyway, what's more annoying is more or less every week when I get home after the radio show, my partner said, "That was a good show today." I thought, oh, Emily said something really made me laugh. And episode 4 of Frank Skinner's Poetry Podcast will be out on Wednesday.
Who is it, Frank?
This week, Ted Hughes.
Ah.
I know.
Oh, brilliant poet.
And you can download it from wherever you get your podcasts. And you know what? Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back live next week. Not according to the over-60s travel card people, but we'll see. If the good Lord spares us and the creeks don't rise, we'll be back again this time next week. Now get out.
This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.